It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind. It either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better... Sheriff? Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
Hi, this is Carol King from Music City, and you're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you. We're going to be chatting with Bo, and Bo actually comes to us from South Carolina. It's where his encounter happened over 20 years ago, and he was kind of up in his stand, and he spent like 20 minutes looking at this creature through his scope. So he'll be going into that tonight. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. And coming up September 8th through the 11th is Phenomicon. And it's actually a pretty cool conference put together out there in Vernal, Utah. If you want to check it out, go to phenomicon.net. Again, it's September 8th through the 11th. In Vernal, Utah, and I'll definitely be there. Come hang out, say hi. It definitely looks like they got a bunch of really good speakers this year. And on Sunday, I'll return and I'll be speaking with Paul. And here's kind of a clip from our conversation. This happened in southeast Iowa.
Me and a friend of mine, we duck hunt on the wildlife, or it's a Hawkeye Wildlife Management area. And hunted this flooded timber for ducks. It was about probably a half-mile walk back into it. And there's a little path that took you, there's fields through there, and they ran up to a levee that we called them sloughs. You know, it was water that, you know, when the river flooded or they'd fill up through little creeks or channels or whatever. But we just walked the base of that levee, and it took us right to the timber. We went in there in the dark, so we get the decoys set up and everything. But as we were walking back there, we were probably 100 yards from where we do our hunting. Noticed like somebody walking in the slough. It sounded like somebody walking. And I said to my friend, I said, I hope they got a scuba suit on, because if they just got chest waders, they might, you know, go under, because it's deep in some spots and shallow in others. But we heard this walking in the slough, and so we stepped up on top of the levee and didn't see any flashlights or anything. So I said, you know, you okay in there? I heard like two more steps in the water, and then it stopped. So we dug flashlights out, and we were looking in the slough and shined across the slough. It's probably 20, 25 yards across. There was this, it was just massive. This thing, there was a tree that had fallen, and it was like down on the bank and into the slough a little bit. And this thing was like facing that tree, not facing us, but facing the tree. and standing there in the water. The water probably came up to just a little bit on his thigh from what it looked like. It had to be. And this thing was massive.
Again, if you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Bo to the show. Bo, thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you on here, and I can't wait to hear the encounter. I know this happened to you about 23 years ago in South Carolina, and you got such a long look at this creature. Can I ask you, prior to having this sighting, what was kind of your take on Sasquatch? I mean, what was kind of your view of the subject?
Well, I didn't have any thoughts of Sasquatch. I mean, I've been scared of different things in the woods, growing up, like just coyotes, bears, or something will get you, but not like monsters or anything like that. And Sasquatch was never on my radar. I mean, the only real Sasquatch that I could even thought was Harry and the Hendersons. It just never crossed my mind. I never once thought that I was going to have to see it or be around one, and I didn't know much about anything to do with them. Like nowadays, you got a computer, and if you type Bigfoot, it'll tell you all kind of stuff that people have seen. And but back then, you didn't have that. You had a newspaper, and you had the library.
Yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on the subject. And I know all of this was prior to your encounter. If you would take me back 23 years ago in South Carolina, kind of what were you doing and what happened?
Sure. Well, I was hunting white-tailed deer in South Carolina, and my dad, he's been taking me every hunting season to South Carolina since I was old enough to sit with him. I sat with him till I was old enough to sit by myself, and then I sat by myself for multiple years and seen all kind of animals, everything South Carolina had to offer. I thought this one particular day, I chose to go to a stand that everybody really wasn't keen on going to because a screech owl had roosted somewhere around and was just super loud and scared some of the other people that was there. It was perfect for me and my dad because he could drop me off there and I could walk in an hour early, and he could drive down and get in his stand, which was not too far away, a couple miles down the road. So anyways, he set me out like an hour early to hunt a railroad bed, an old railroad bed. The tracks wasn't even there no more. One end of it's a swamp. The other end of it is more like it gets higher, and there's a field off to the right side of the railroad bed. But I get up to the railroad bed about an hour before dark, or before daylight, and I climb up in the ground blind, the box blind actually. It was a ground blind, but sat up maybe 8 to 9, 10 feet in the air, right in the middle of the railroad bed. To my left is like a 75-yard shot to a berm, and you can't see past it. And then to my right is a corn pile about 125 yards, and I can see past it maybe another 100 yards to a berm, and you can't see past that. And the railroad bed itself may be like, I don't know, 50 feet across or something, but you can drive a truck down it. So I'm there super early because my dad had to get all the way to his stand, and be set up before daylight too. So anyhow, I was sitting down in the stand facing the opposite direction. I would have been facing looking where I come in, but I was actually facing looking the other way, sitting on the ground, in the floorboard of the box blind with all my stuff in the seat. I think that's important because if this thing, like most deer come out and check a deer stand, if they're familiar with hunters, they know what a silhouette of a person looks like up there. And I was sitting down in the box blind below the shooting rail where I had some little notches cut out that I could see to the corn pile and off into the woods a little bit. So I had no silhouette, like for the little shooting gap that was all the way around the box blind. My head and shoulders wasn't sticking up, is what I'm saying. So anyhow, I sat there till daylight, and I'm watching through my little holes, and nothing is really happening. A bunch of squirrels and stuff. And then towards the corn pile side, but off in the woods, maybe 50, 75 yards where the tree line gets thick enough you can't see in anymore, I see something walk out of the woods. And immediately when I seen it, it was so black that I said, it's a bear. I put my gun up immediately because I don't take binoculars. I use the gun that way when I see something through the scope. If it's shootable, I'm already there. So I put my gun up on the shooting rail. I'm still like kneeled down in the floorboard of the deer stand, and I scope it, and it's like going down to the ground, and then it walks a little bit and stands real tall, like a person, and it's looking away from me, which, by the way, is the same direction the wind is blowing from. So the wind was blowing from that direction towards me. So not only if he checked my stand could he not see me, but he also couldn't smell me because I was downwind apparently. When he broke the wood line there, about halfway between him and the corn pile, and then and another 50 yards further is about a 4-acre field. Well, this what I thought was a bear, and then I thought it was a man, and I'm thinking maybe it was just a bear standing up, and it's now a bear. And then it walked into another tree, and I'm looking at it through my scope, and I'm zooming in. I can't tell exactly what it is, but it looks like a ghillie suit. Like it don't look like bear fur. It looks like a something you'd see on like a army movie. Snipers crawling through the dirt, but it's more black and with a little bit of gray and sticks and like maybe some mud and leaves. Like if it was a ghillie suit, it's probably the most expensive one ever made because it had to be tailor-made to whatever was wearing it was built like a bodybuilder. And I know bears are big. I see a lot of black bears in South Carolina, and I know their shape, and this thing had big shoulders, big back, and
And forgive me for interrupting you, but I wanted to ask you, Bo, I know you're in a concealed position now, kind of looking down at this thing. How far away from you is it? Because you're looking through the scope at this point.
yeah, I'm looking through the scope, and I'm looking through a bunch of like scrub oaks where it's thick but not so thick. I could see through there. I could see through the woods, which was to the right of my corn pile, which was a clear, wide open path of old railroad bed. So he's to the right of that, and I can see in there like 100 yards, and maybe a little less. But he's about, I'd say, from my deer stand, he's probably 100. He's past the corn pile and bladed to my right, so he's 140 yards from me. And I got a 20 power, a 4 to 20 power Kales scope on a 7mm Remington Magnum. And I'm zooming in, I'm zooming out, and I'm trying to like see boots or gloves or a hat or something, and all I can make out is just a ghillie suit, like something I ain't never seen before. I don't know. And it keep going. It go down, and then move forward a little bit, and stand up. And I figured that maybe it's a poacher, big old guy, big muscled up man in a $high suit, but there was no gun. I didn't think, I couldn't see no gun. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to figure if it's a poacher, he's gonna have a gun. But he made his way to the edge of this field, and there was nothing in the field because I've been watching it too. And I'd be daggum if when he got there, it seemed there wasn't nothing there. He like relaxed, walked up to a smaller tree, maybe like a sweet gum or something, and he put his hand up in it and held it for a minute. And he kind of leaned on his left leg and took his right leg and scratched the back of his left leg. And I'm like, that is weird. And he scratched it good, like up and down from knee to the ankle. This has got to be a poacher. And I've been hunting that stand quite a bit too. And I corn my own pile, so it ain't like I can sit up in my stand and see somebody standing where it was and have an exact reference to it. It's kind of hard to tell. Like one time I shot a doe that I thought was 150 pounds and she was 110 pounds. So looking at it, I didn't consider how big it was till later. But in my mind, I'm like, well, this got to be a person. That ain't a bear. Definitely ain't a bear. And then it turned towards my corn pile. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna get a good look at it. And I can see its back and its arms and stuff, but I can't make out its fingers. I can't make out any boots or toes. I can't see its face through this like dreadlock mat of fur. Can't make out anything except the overall shape of a big man. So it's making its way. It's got like 40 yards from my right, moving to the left to get to the corn pile. And it started, say it was at 140 yards when he scratched his ankle, and he's closing in to 125 yards towards my corn pile. He's blading towards me, but I still got the wind. He gets to the edge of the road, the edge of the railroad bed, and there's a ditch there, maybe 7-8 foot deep, and it's pretty wide. And he just disappears completely, like in the shrubs. And I'm thinking he should be coming out, and I'm up on the rest. Got my zoom backed off to like 10 so I can get a good view of it. Well, it didn't come out immediately, so I guess he was kind of watching, seeing what was happening on the road by my corn pile. But right on my corn pile, maybe a little bit, maybe a few feet past it, he pops out. But this is when it got a little like creepy. Like if it's a bear or a poacher, that's fine. I've seen both. I've never seen a poacher this big or this, have this kind of suit. And if he's a poacher, where's his gun? When he come out onto the road on his belly, he was faced away from me. And he was looking into the wind, I assume smelling the wind, and looking down towards the berm. And I guess he didn't see what he's looking for. And he made a crazy move right then. He spun to look my direction. And it's going to sound weird, but I'm just telling you, he spun like a spider, like he was on top. He went 180 like immediately, which freaked me out. And I flipped my safety off because it was crazy how fast this thing flipped around. And it was all stretched out, which was crazy. The way it looked, it was just creepy. And I waved my hand above my scope. I took my left hand off my scope and I waved it. And I was still looking through the scope at it and got my finger on the trigger. And I'm searching for eyeballs or face, hands. It was weird. There was no it was just a lot of fur. It was just a big muscular ball of fur. And when I waved my hand, it's like it froze for a second. It popped up to his knees, like just maybe a quarter, maybe half the way up. And then froze there for a second. And I'm staring it through my scope, going in and out and zooming close as I can get. And all I see is dreadlocks and sticks and leaves and mud. And it bolts the same direction, the same path it came to my corn pile. It went the same way. And I'd say it probably had to close somewhere between 60 and 100 yards in about 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's kind of a blur when they leave. I mean, they move so quickly. When it took off, was it on all fours?
I don't know. It was so fast, like it went from flat on its belly to its knees to standing and leaping completely off the middle of the road to like 30 feet to its left, which would have been my right. And then it ran so quick, it looked like it was on a zip line. So I kind of feel like it was running with everything it had. It was getting out of there.
And Bo, when you say it moved like it was on a zip line, what do you mean by that?
Like if you ever see somebody coming through the river trees on a zip line, that's what it looked like. Like down here where we are, sometimes people will make zip lines and you can reach the end of it and it'll fling you into the river. And when you see them coming from like 100 yards on the zip line with their feet up, just coming through like they're flying, a couple like 8 feet off the ground, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, it's pretty common, Bo. I know a lot of eyewitnesses, when they describe the movement, what they'll say is it was like the thing was floating.
Man, it really is. It's what I'm talking about. Like, you would think it would be like a jump, 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 or like a like run maybe a little bit and turn around and look, or even a bear. When you scare a bear and it gets gone, that thing gets real low to the ground and it runs hard as it can go, and it looks like just a fast running bear. It don't look like this. I don't know. I've never seen like what a silverback gorilla looks like running full speed through the woods, but I bet it's pretty similar.
Yeah, can I ask you, Bo? Because I know you're an outdoorsman. I know you've grown up hunting and hiking and just being out in the woods, and I know that from talking to you. So you've seen bears. You know what bears look like, and you've I'm assuming you've run into poachers. But you're looking at this thing, and it doesn't really line up with a bear. It's too big to be a bear, too big to be a man. The movement's all wrong. What's kind of going through your mind at this point?
Well, I was scared at that point. I knew it wasn't anything I've seen, and I didn't know. I was young. I just was scared, and I was dropped off there. So I knew that my dad wasn't coming to get me for another 2 hours. So I had to sit there. We didn't have cell phones. Like I said, I had no cell phone or no radio or anything like that. I just had my little backpack full of stuff, and he's coming back to get me at 11:30.
Yeah, that's the worst, man. Sitting there waiting, especially after you just saw this thing. Can I ask you what kind of happens next? I mean, does a creature show up again, or when your dad shows up, do you tell him what happened?
So next thing happened is I sat there till my dad come, and he drove right in the same way I walked in, and he pulled up to my stand and was like, "What'd you see?" He got his arms out, and I'm of course all the way at the bottom of my stand and headed to his truck when his arms is hanging out, and he's going, "What in the heck?" I said, "Dad, I don't know what happened, but the best I can tell you is that there's a football player, a big giant NFL football player wearing a ghillie suit that was poaching without a gun." That's all I knew to tell him, because I didn't know. No, I didn't know. You know what I mean? So he called the guy that we were leasing from, which was the owner, the leaser of the whole hunting camp. His name was Mike Green. He was actually a game warden at the time, and he called him up and told him that I seen a poacher. So he came over there immediately, and we're still sitting. No, we was at the Burger King actually, and he said, "I'll meet you over there." So we went back, met him there. They told me to get up in the stand and tell me where the poacher came from. So they started walking down there, and when this was cool too. When they got down there, that's when I realized how big this thing was, because when it stood up on its knees and they were in the same spot now, two of them standing side by side, both 200-pound men, they weren't as big as this thing when it wasn't even completely standing up. So I said, "Right there." And they walked all through the woods looking for trails. And the game warden, Mr. Green, he walked through the tree line where it came from and seen two houses over there. So he come back and drove over there, knocked on the doors, asked about people fitting the description. A big, very tall bodybuilder. Nobody fit the description. Nobody was even around to hunt. He asked me, the game warden said, "Well, did he have a gun?" I said, "Well, I'm assuming he had a gun if he's a poacher, but I've never seen one." And like I said, man, I scoped him for 20 minutes. It took it took him probably 10 minutes to go check the field, and he was downwind of it, which tells you how primitive of a hunter this thing is. He's hunting the wind, and he's hiding behind trees, staying low, and then he gets to a tree and looks up and looks kind of around the tree. Then he goes back down and scooches to another tree. And the way he got on my corn pile and faced the wind immediately, he's checking, the most A hunter just ain't gonna do that. A man looks with his eyes. A man don't hunt with his nose. So that I know that this thing is hunting, and I know that I watched him hunt. I seen how he hunts. I seen how he moves, and I seen him scared because when I waved, he thought he was the Mister Hunter that nobody even knew he was there. And when he looked at me and I waved like, "How you doing? You're in my spot." He was busted. I had him. I could have shot him 100. I could have used every bullet I had. But looking back, to be honest, I, I don't think, I do not think a 7 millimeter Remington Magnum is going to stop him.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I know a 7mm, it's a big round and there's a lot of power behind it. Out in the Pacific Northwest, you'll see people generally hunt with like 30-06, because there's trees in the way and there's a lot of power behind that round. I guess my point is, I don't know. That's a pretty heavy round.
Sure, it's a big round, but I've also shot 180-pound white-tailed deer with it in the lungs and had to trail him a mile. As fast as this thing could run, no way. You could shoot it. It'd be like, even if you shot a grizzly with a 7 millimeter, you better be dead right where you hit him.
Yeah, I hear ya. Can I ask you, when this creature, so you're looking at it and it doesn't notice really that you're there, and then it kind of pivots and spins around and pinpoints exactly where you're at. Do you find that strange?
I don't think he pinpointed where I was at when he flipped around. I think he pinpointed where I was at when I waved at him. I think when he flipped around like on a dime, like literally flipped around, I think he had already looked that way and had smelled that way, and he immediately turned around to get a view of the other way. He decided when he come out to the corn pile that he was going to give his attention to the winded side first. And he only really looked that way maybe 20, 30 seconds before he flipped my way. The majority of the time I watched him was him coming, closing the distance from that where the swamp came out and was kind of a hill going to that 4-acre field, and then from the 4-acre field moving towards my railroad bed and corn pile.
I think one of the questions someone in the audience is probably thinking is, why not shoot? Why didn't you shoot it? And I kind of know why you didn't. And just from being a hunter, I understand why you didn't. But I think it's an important question to ask. Why didn't you shoot it?
Because you can't. You think it's a person. Even if you can't see its face like me, it's 100% not an animal. After you see it move, like you can tell pretty much what animals, do, and you just know your body, your eyeballs know it, bud. When you see a person, it's like, yep, that's a person. Um, so it was. The only thing throwed me off was the way it moved. It was like, I just was like a bear because I know bear's the only thing that's going to stand up over there. In South Carolina, a black bear is the only thing. I mean, deer will stand up, but that's the only thing that color and even close to that big, which it ain't even close. It's like half, not even, is a black bear. And they don't look the same to somebody that's seen a black bear like manged up or something, like just real poor and very little hair. They have pink underneath sometimes. That I could see a person, going, "Oh, this is something weird," but not me. I would know that's a sick bear.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I'm sure someone out there might have been wondering that. And sometimes hunters get a bad rap, that they're out there slaughtering everything. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. Every hunter I know is gun safety is number one and know what you're shooting and everything like that. So I really understand why you didn't pull the trigger. There's that moment in your head, where your brain's trying to figure out what you're seeing. And, like with you, Bo, you're thinking, okay, bear, okay, it's a poacher, okay, it's not that. So there's a lot of process and calculation going on in the head. Plus, it really wasn't threatening you. So I get where you're coming from.
Even though I was scared, it was going to have to really threaten me for me to shoot. it just wasn't that way. It was doing its thing, and I think I'd have never seen it if I wasn't sitting down in my deer stand below the shooting rail. If my silhouette was there, I don't think I'd ever seen it.
Have you ever been back to that property since the encounter, Bo?
Sure haven't. I think it was that year that was our last year there, and I did kill a 6-point off that stand, and my dad was hunting with me, so me and him both did go back and sit that stand together. Maybe a month later, and I shot a 6-point there.
6 point, congratulations, man. And there was no sign of the creature. You didn't have any issues?
No sign of the creature. And then we lost this property, and we ain't been back. So,
What a cool opportunity, though, to, you had so much time to watch the creature and, having its foot scratch the calf on the other leg. Sounds very human-like. I mean, it seems like human-like behavior, but what a cool opportunity to really stop and study this thing from an elevated position. I ask everyone, Bo, on the show, and there's no wrong answer. What do you think Sasquatch is? What's kind of your opinion?
I'd say I'd say it's an animal, because I don't think a person would hunt the same way. I think it hunts like an animal. Knowing that it hunts like a predator animal, I would say it's probably territorial, and I would say that they can get scared too, because I've heard the story of one that was on. I think you had interviewed a guy, and it was not scared. Like, he thought it lured him into a trap. This thing, when I waved at it, man, this thing was frozen stiff for like 5 seconds. He was busted, just in my mind what a poacher would do. Like, oh crap, I've been caught. Now I'm going to run. That's just what he done.
Would you want to see another one?
I don't think so, man. I mean, I'm not going to go try to find him. I think what I've told you is a pretty good recipe to find one. If you hunt the wind right, and you got a spot where there's pigs and turkeys, and steady corn. I think that and the railroad bed and a swamp, you put them together, and I think you got a pretty good situation to find one. But just like any animal, man, a bear is not very dangerous, but they kill people. So if there was enough smarts that they're not allowed to be seen by people or something, he would have come to me. He would have been at my deer stand in seconds. He would have closed 100 yards like nothing, and probably done some kind of Hulk smash on my deer stand and just obliterated it. I don't think it's that smart, but the fact that nobody's got a body, if there ain't one hidden somewhere for the government, however they do their stuff, then if nobody's legitimately ever found a body, that's what's weird to me, is that they don't just disappear. It's a lot of flesh, and it would stink, you know what I'm saying? People that say they shot them and chased them down, it seems like in a day or two, or a dog would be able to go right to it. I mean, it's a big, giant animal.
Yeah, that's kind of my hang up with the whole thing. Why hasn't a body been found? Why hasn't someone shot one? And if we're just relying on the Pacific Northwest, they're seen all over the world. There's just as many reports in Australia, Canada, China. You pretty much, they're seen all over the world. And that's the part that frustrates me, is why we haven't been able to catch up with them. But that's my hang up.
It's got to live underground in soft dirt, like near a swamp. That way it can dig its area really fast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the biggest problem, is no one really knows where they go, or, and anyone who tells you any different is probably lying to you. But there is a lot of reports of them being in caves and in cave systems for sure. Can I ask you, you were 17, 18 years old when this happened to you. How did this kind of affect your life, or did it?
it didn't really affect me, and probably because at that time it ain't like now. If it happened to a 17-year-old boy today, he's gonna be on Facebook telling people about it, social media stuff. You know, there was none of that. I mean, there wasn't. I had a handful of friends that I could tell, and that's it. It ain't like you get a lot back from things happening to you back then, and nothing. It happened. Yeah, I was shook up a little bit, and I end up chalking it up to some weird, random creature that I can't explain that was not trying to kill me. And I've hunted since. I've been in the woods since. I've never had an encounter like that, and I've been up close on accident to many big animals. That it's just a whole different thing. I wish somebody'd get a legit picture of it, but I seen the one of them walking and stuff. And I just don't know. And maybe they just all look different, but I know what I seen had so much hair on it that you couldn't tell where its eyes was.
Bo, on the show, we talk about lights all the time. People see these weird balls of light, and I know you're kind of a new listener, but people are definitely seeing these weird lights in the forest. I know you've been hunting your whole life and kind of growing up out there in South Carolina. Did you ever see any strange lights while out in the woods?
No, I've never seen any kind of lights. I've heard people talk about orbs and stuff, and I've never seen anything like that. I'm not saying that couldn't happen. I don't know, but I've never seen any kind of like floating like balls of light or anything. I've never seen aliens or anything.
Yeah, going back to the comment you were just making about its fur and, being a big glob of, hair, when he saw this thing, I've often wondered if that, in a lot of reports, Bo, you'll hear eyewitnesses say it was clean. It was like it just came from the barber. I mean, it was manicured and just beautiful. And then in other cases, you hear where their hair is all messed up and they're just gross. With Sasquatch, it seems like there's a reason why they do everything. I've often wondered, when witnesses report back, this disheveled and they couldn't see the face and the hair is everywhere. And I've often wondered, why are some totally groomed and why are some not?
Like that could have been his hunting, the way he set up when it went hunting. It could have pulled all its hair in front of its face to break its face up. I mean, if I go in the woods like that, I like to wear my net hoodie. And it kind of covers my face, where you can't really see eyes and stuff. Could see maybe that it done that too. Because there was sticks holding different pieces to different pieces. Like tied together.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same wavelength, Bo. I mean, that's really kind of where I was going with it too. They do, like you said, ghillie suit. You'd see a sniper, a special operator in the military, sniper put together. They kind of do that, and I've wondered the same thing. Maybe it's more of to be part of the ghillie suit and hide hide them. Who knows? But it's a very cool account, Bo, and I really do appreciate you coming forward. I know it happened 20 years ago in South Carolina, and I think it's so cool that you got such a long look at this thing.
Well, I can't thank you enough for giving me an opportunity to tell somebody that actually believes me. And it's probably good for a lot of people to hear that you might not want to shoot it because it might be more like a person than you think.
Yeah, definitely could be. It's good advice. It definitely could be. Bo, thank you again for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. If you're going to be in Utah, September 8th through the 11th, around the Vernal area, come by and say hi. I will be at Phenomicon, and I'll include a link as well. I'll be back on Sunday for the members. Everyone else, until next time.